Hey, Domain Dave, cheapwinefinder.com again. 3 times a week, we write up a value price wine review, and 3 times a week, we plug in the microphone, and, well, that's what we're doing right now. And today we've got a wine from the West Cape of South Africa. It's called the Salty Blonde Sauvignon Blanc. I found it for $10.99, but a check of the web showed it closer to $15. And it is a kind of a low-calorie, low-alcohol wine. Not kind of. Let me grab the bottle that has all the details on it. It says it has 80 calories, though the website says it has 75. It's 9% alcohol. It's got 1 carb. It's got 0 fat. It's low sugar. It's gluten-free. And it is vegan, certified vegan friendly. And it's a Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa on top of it all. And if that's not enough, it's got a little bit of a spritz to it. Just a little bit. Just to tingle the tongue a little bit with some bubbles. There's not a lot. It has a screw cap. It's not really a bubbly, but... And I'm not sure why. Sometimes they stop the fermentation a little early. You get a little bit of bubbles to it. Maybe that's what they did to keep the alcohol down. And it's also non-vintage. And that's another thing. This is my guess on that. Not that it makes much difference, but with these wines where there's less sugar, less alcohol, less calories, all that kind of thing, a lot of times they'll take a portion of the wine out and do something to it, do a process that kind of leaches the alcohol and the sugar out of it, and then they add it back to the original wine, and then it lowers all the percentages. But I'm thinking that they probably did that to a bunch of it, so every next vintage they're going to have the wine that's been denatured or whatever you want to call it available. So that kind of makes sense if you think of it that way. And it's from South Africa, and it's a Sauvignon Blanc, and it seems like every growing area has a good Sauvignon Blanc, but they're starting to be a little bit different. I'm going to take a sip of this one. The spritz doesn't last long. My glass, I've had the wine in my glass for a little bit. It's very subtle, but it's got a lot of flavor. Sauvignon Blanc has a lot of flavor. If you're going to be removing something from a wine, you want to be removing it from a wine that that has an excess of flavor. There's some subtle wines you don't want to do that to, but Sauvignon Blanc, you can kind of get away with it, especially if you're looking for the less sugar, the less alcohol. I mean, this is, there are school nights now, and you don't really want to sit back and after a long day have a glass of wine or two. And you don't want to have a heavy alcohol wine. You want to, you don't want to worry about being overserved. And then you have to get up tomorrow and you're feeling fine. 9%'s not going to, a glass of 9% alcohol is not going to affect you at all, or at least unless you're super sensitive. It's going to do a good job for you. And the taste, subtle, but full and kind of varied. Yeah, tastes good. The Salty Blonde name comes from the color is yellow, so that's blonde, and the salt comes from there are 3 oceans that come together at the tip of Africa, and I think the Southern Atlantic Ocean is on the western side, but it could be the Indian Ocean, or I don't even know what the other one is. It's a long way from Chicago. But so the name comes from it's what it is, so that's not a bad thing. And I did get a bit of salty flavor on it. There was a salty sensation. A lot of times when you age a wine on lees, which means you leave the dead yeast in, and I don't know if this happened, you get a nutty, salty thing, but this just had a little bit of salt, which could have come from proximity, so that's pretty good. I'm going to take another sip and close this up, because this wine is good to you and good for you, so what are you going to do? Yeah, I mean, it's not the most, if you have it next to a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, you're going to be, what happened. But if you're just looking for a nice white wine with some good flavor and a lot of the things you don't want maybe on that particular night removed, this is kind of like an easy to take wine. You're not really suffering by having a little bit of the alcohol and the sugar and the calories removed, because, sometimes wine can be indulgent, but this one isn't, and you're not paying a price. So that's it for me, Domain Dave, cheapwinefinder.com. This is the Salty Blonde Sauvignon Blanc non-vintage. A little bit of a spritzer from South Africa. It's going to be somewhere from at least $12 to $10, $11, $12 to $15. If you're looking for what it offers, it's a pretty good option. So adios, keep it cheap. I'll be talking to you in a couple of days. I've got a Grateful Dead wine from Lodi, if you're into being a deadhead. So that's it for me. Adios, keep it cheap, and I'll be talking to you. Bye-bye.